Welcome to the Scoop World Order. Happy Saturday. Thoughts and prayers going out to Donald Trump. Looks like an assassination attempt on his life. We're going to go through a little bit of that. We're praying for everybody involved. Obviously, terrible, heinous act, but we're going to get through the show. Talk a little bit about what we've uncovered about Michigan and what is coming with sanctions. Talk a little bit about the what's going on in the world of Ohio State. The game is coming out on Monday, so we've got a lot of stuff to break down. As always, we appreciate you guys being a part of our show each and every night. Thank you for being with us on this Saturday night. Again, terrible situation just unfolded in Pennsylvania. Thoughts and prayers out to President Donald Trump and what is going on. Again, it was horrific. It looks like he literally dodged a bullet, and we're going to keep him in our thoughts and prayers. We're going to continue the show. If you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also, click that little alert bell. Again, we appreciate you guys. This will be a huge show tonight because you guys make it one, so thank you for that. Nevadabuck has got some great Michigan intel on what is going on. We got some great intel on what's going on in team workouts, so stick with us. We appreciate you guys, again, during this heinous time. Nevada, we were going to do a full Michigan show, and it's obviously, with what's going on with the election and what just happened, it's a little different, a little hairy. But the Michigan stuff is going to crack at some point. Again, with what went on between the Big Ten commissioner, the people in the NCAA that not to mention just the rival coaches across the conference that have dealt with what Michigan did. There's some new stuff brewing. I think that Michigan's beat, they are the worst beat in all of college football. They're actually worse than Ohio State's beat, which is almost impossible, but they are. But what are your thoughts on what's going on with Michigan? It's getting pretty bad up there. And again, I know that they can deny it and they can be scared of it and say that we're just hedging. But when you've got the Connor Stallion stuff and you've got the mouthpieces that cover Michigan football talking a little bit about, they don't know if Connor Stallion was actually at the Central Michigan game, and was that really him with the Ray-Bans on with the little camera in them? We're not sure if that was him or not. Where are you at with this? Because again, I think that the walls are closing in. I think that they know that. I think that Sharon Moore he's the mark. He's the guy that they left to take the bullets as everybody took off and headed out to Los Angeles. But where are you at with the Michigan investigation?
Well, from talking to my Michigan source, it's been funny. There's been a decided kind of change in kind of the tenor of the Michigan people. The Michigan people have kind of gone from, oh, there's nothing going to happen, and we're won, and this is great, and we're going to get an apology, to now they're starting to kind of prepare their fan base for, well, stuff's probably going to happen, but Michigan's going to fight it, and we'll put up the good fight and things like that. And so it's been interesting to watch how they've been kind of going as the investigation has seemingly been expanding every single month with the NCAA, and every time they give an update to the Big Ten, which they do probably about every 4 to 5 weeks, they talk about an expansion and an acquisition of new information. And I think at this point in time, it's probably good. I mean, if you go back and read the letter that Ward Manuel had gotten from Chad Hawley when they talked to him about the violation of the sportsmanship policy, it says specifically the Big Ten Conference were informed by the NCAA staff on November 2nd that evidence characterized by the NCAA as uncontroverted exists to demonstrate that a non-coaching football staff member, Connor Sines, coordinated a scheme by which individuals were directed to attend games of future opponents for scouting purposes in violation of NCAA bylaw 1161, which prohibits in-person scouting. In addition, the individuals engaged in scouting were instructed to make video recordings, which violates NCAA Plan Rules FR 14-11H, prohibitive recording signals given by opposing players, etc. These were not isolated or haphazard incidents. The violations were pervasive, systemic, and occurred over multiple years, specifically dating back to at least 2021 and continuing through the current season. The staff member purchased strategically located tickets for games. These games were in numerous venues and transferred to individuals who were instructed to attend the videos and make video recordings. Information were delivered back. The staff member was present on the sideline of games in close proximity to the institution's coaching staff and communicated directly with the coaching staff. So, I mean, when you hear that, it's like, wow, this is, it's so bad. And I think that when you figure out that the NCAA has now kind of moved past this and is gaining more information about how deep these violations went and how many people knew and how many people were involved, you see why the Michigan insiders are starting to kind of change their tune about what's going to happen, because I think they realize now that the walls are closing in, things are about to get really bad for them, and yeah, I think that the hammer's about to fall on Michigan. But it's been very interesting to talk to, because you can talk to the Michigan insiders, you talk to them kind of offline. They all kind of say, look, they know that's happening, but they don't want to be the one. Nobody wants to be the one to kind of stand up and say how bad it's going to be. But now they're all starting to kind of realize it at the same time, and it's kind of fun to watch because even they are starting to realize how bad it's going to be, and I'm enjoying watching that.
Yeah, and they're like besides themselves at this point. Again, I think that they're just dodging everything and deflecting everything, thinking nothing's going to happen. But when you listen to the outrage from the athletic directors, the coaches, the commissioner of the Big Ten, and you realize what is at stake here, like this has to be this has to be them getting smashed, which is, again, that's where we're at. We've been saying it since day one. Like, this is not going to be a slap on the wrist or, oh, they're not going to do anything. Like, when you listen to what, again, go back and listen to like what James Franklin said, Greg Schiano, not to mention all of the data that they've gathered through this evidence, or the lack of data that they've gathered because people haven't complied. This is not going to be some small, innocuous deal. Again, it was interesting. Like last night, we went through Tattoo Gate, and it was like the stuff that Jim Tressel did was a literal joke compared to this stuff. I mean, this is something that affected games, it affected livelihoods, it affected, like when you lose football games, you lose to Michigan if you're an Ohio State coach or, a part of a different program. I mean, guys, people lose their jobs. I mean, coaches, head coaches, assistant coaches, athletic directors, you lose too many times. I mean, it costs you your livelihoods. So it's a major smear on the sport. I don't know how you could look at it any other way. I don't think that Michigan, again, I think that the most interesting, kind of facet of the entire operation is the fact that Michigan has literally thumbed their nose at the NCAA. And I've said, if you guys listen to the show, religiously, like I know a lot of you guys do, like when you're caught in a scandal like that, cooperation is your best, it's your best move. I mean, hey, this is what we did. This is how we did it. This was a thing. Because I think that, in a perfect world, the NCAA would like to, they're going to get smacked. Again, like Arizona State was exemplary in terms of their cooperation, and they got smashed by the NCAA. Michigan was the polar opposite. They were like USC. Like USC during the Reggie Bush stuff, like their athletic director like shut the doors, said nobody's allowed to come in. We're not giving you any records. And they got smashed into this like USC. And again, I'm not overstating this because I played in the era where USC was Alabama, USC was Georgia, USC was the team that nobody wanted to see on the field because they were that dominant and that good. They haven't been that since their sanctions were levied. I mean, when I played in the mid 2000s, that was Reggie, Lendell, Cedric Ellis. Then after I left, there was Maluga and Clay Matthews Jr. and Cushing and Taylor Mays. And I mean, they were an absolute juggernaut. And after the NCAA got done with them, after they lied about the Reggie Bush stuff, they took his Heisman, they stripped them of a lot of their wins and whatever else they did. Like, they haven't been the same since. They haven't even been close to the same since. And I think this is going to be a worse fate for Michigan. Michigan, again, is a program that they were exceptionally desperate. Urban Meyer smashed Jim Harbaugh into the stone because when Jim Harbaugh got hired by Michigan, they thought that this was going to be the next like Woody and Bo, and Urban proceeded to beat him 5 times in a row. It went 5-0 against them, just smashed them, and they were never what they wanted to be. But I think that desperation sunk in, and I think that the program was desperate, but I also think that a guy like Connor Stalions is a dangerous guy because he's a smart guy. And he's the guy that, was like, well, I can figure out a way to get an edge on the opponents, and I can have my little stringer dudes hang out at these random games and tape signals, and I can decipher them, and I can stand next to the coordinators and talk about, well, this is what they're doing, this is what I think they're doing, and it'll give you this dramatic edge. And it did, because again, Michigan went from being hapless, middle tier, mid-ish type program to being, national champion. And that didn't happen because they went out and got a bunch of guys in the portal or they recruited a bunch of better talent. It happened simply because they were cheating. And again, like I get why Jim Harbaugh would do it, because he was at death's door with Michigan. I mean, Michigan, at the end of the day, you can say, Kirk, you got your opinions. You're an Ohio State homer. You're an Ohio State All-American. You're a honk, whatever you want to say. But Ward Manuel literally made Jim Harbaugh take a 50% pay cut, which in coaching is almost unheard of. But that's how little Ward Manuel thought of Jim Harbaugh. And he's like, well, you got this contract, but you're going to take a big pay cut to stay here. You're a Michigan man, whatever, but you've sucked your initial first few years. You got smashed by Urban Meyer. And then all of a sudden they figure out this way to cheat. And all of a sudden they won a bunch of, they won 3 in a row against Ohio State. They won a national title. And it changed the trajectory of a lot of their careers. And again, Jim Harbaugh, who is sly like a fox, used that to catapult into a humongous deal with the Los Angeles Chargers, where he's making $20 million a year over the next 5 to 6 years, either 100 or 120 million. And it basically saved his career. Because, when you're getting smashed by Ohio State every year, when you're supposed to be like their second coming of Bo Schembechler, it doesn't end up working out well. Nevada, we're starting to get some super chats in. What are your thoughts on this? Because like I said, I think that they were desperate, and people that don't think that anything's going to happen, I don't know what to say. I've never seen a case where there's been so much evidence between the athletic director, between coaches in the conference, athletic directors in the conference, coming out and strongly opposing and being very terse towards Michigan, and people thinking that nothing was going to happen. Because I think that when this thing comes, and again, the NCAA moves like a tugboat. They move slowly, but they move, but they try to move correctly. And you have to understand, when there's a case like this, like, they always get one of the best compliance officers in the country. They've got a committee of guys that are the ace compliance guys across the country that are kind of the arbitrators in this entire decision, and they appoint them. And there's not going to be some guy who is an ace arbitrator and a guy who's a compliance expert who's going to look at the facts here. And then, and again, we're only privy to the stuff that we know and the stuff we can surmise. We're not privy to the stuff that they're finding, the stuff that they get into the data, they get into the transactions, they get into the Venmo logs where, who's sending money to who to cover these games. Like, we're not privy to any of that stuff. So I think when all that comes down, the hammer is going to come, and it's going to be magnificent. Nevada, are you on the wavelength with me? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Where am I going wrong?
Well, no, I think that, your point though about USC was a really good one, because people are like, oh, Michigan, they're not going to want to sanction Michigan because Michigan's such a popular program. It's like, dude, nobody was more popular than USC. I mean, USC was at the absolute pinnacle zenith of college football, and they got the hammer from the NCAA. And I think, the whole point is, in this case, if you're not going to punish the case that's pervasive, that goes on for years, that's directly in violation of thing, and they reference the fact that Stallions had direct contact and proximity to the other members of the coaching staff. I mean, it just shows how far this thing went. And for the NCAA, I think I think people are talking about, well, how relevant is the NCAA? Where's the NCAA's future? What are they going to be? What are they going to do? Do they really have a function anymore? I mean, I think you really could make the argument that if you don't penalize this, which case would you penalize? Like how, if you can't penalize a case that goes on for multiple years, that's pervasive, that's in direct that knowing violation that involves the head coach, the coordinators, and directly went to uh, you know uh, on-field performance, competitive advantage, wins, losses, everything like that. If you can't punish this one, you can't punish it. There's just no absolute nothing should go punished. And I think for the NCAA, Michigan made it so bad that I think that they've kind of forced the NCAA's hands because the NCAA has to do something. The NCAA can't be in a position where they don't do something on this one because they have to. And I think it's so egregious, it's so bad, and yeah, I think even the most stalwart Michigan fans are kind of realizing, man, this one was over the line. This wasn't like a little thing. This wasn't trinkets. This wasn't a recruiting a cheeseburger. This was the most egregious cheating scandal in the history of college football. The NCAA knows it. Read the letter. Read that letter right there that I just sent you about how this was not an isolated incident, how this involved multiple staff members and coordinated and went all the way up. I mean, that's how bad the NCAA views this. They view the evidence as uncontroverted. So, like, they've got it. They've got them dead to rights right now. And I think the result, man, it's going to be bad for Michigan. And I went into this thing thinking it's going to be bad. I really think, as I sit here right now, I really think it's going to be worse. I think the punishment could be worse than we've even been thinking on this. And for Michigan fans, that's bad news.
Yeah, and like I said, when I was, playing college football, 03, 4, 5, 6, 7, like USC was Georgia, Bama, Clemson when Clemson had Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence there at their zenith. That's what USC was. And I'm telling you, like Pete Carroll, and again, I don't know why Roger Goodell didn't smoke Pete Carroll for doing this, but he took that golden parachute to the Seattle Seahawks and he dodged everything. And he left it with, Lane Kiffin and then the other guy and Sarkisian and all the other guys that they've had since before they got Lincoln. And I'm just telling you, man, they have not been the terror that they were. And again, we were in 05, like, if we don't choke against Texas, and suck on offense and give up that touchdown to Lyman Sweed, like, that's who we're seeing. And again, that would have been a war. Now, we put that Notre Dame team that, easily could have beat them in South Bend, the game that had the Bush push. But, that SC team was nasty, and we played better defense versus Texas than they did. But, they had Reggie and Lendell and they had Sam Baker, who's a good friend of mine. Obviously Matt Lyon, they had 2 Heisman winners in their backfield. They ended up getting Mike Williams, Dwayne Jarrett. I mean, they were the squad in the mid 2000s. And after those sanctions came down, after all the stuff that Reggie did and all the stuff that they found that was improper, I mean, have they been a factor? I don't think so. I mean, Pete took off, I think Pete took off in 10 because he came to the shoe and beat us in 09 with Matt Barkley as a true freshman. But he was gone after that. I mean, because that's when the hammer came down on those guys. And I think that Michigan, again, the funniest thing about this whole thing is, when you're doing these investigations, there's a lot of stuff going on. And again, I've been in big time court hearings and things that have been kind of under wraps and suppressed and quiet and not done in the public eye. And that's what I feel like this is like. I think that these guys, they're gathering this evidence, and when they come to their decision, like, they're going to say, well, here's all the evidence we got. We got the Connor Stallion stuff, all the electronic transfers, all of the Ticketmaster transfers, the Venmos, whatever. We've got none of your guys cooperated. They fired their linebackers coach on a Friday afternoon during the season. The entire staff left. Mike Hart is still AWOL. No one knows where he is now. And then you've got, the stuff on tape. 10 TV, thank God, got a nice video of Connor Stallions telling the defensive coordinator, hey, it's a run right. They got, Fox has a nice video of him on the sideline of the Michigan State Central Michigan game. So again, I don't know what else you need. I mean, as long as they don't have, the O.J. Simpson's prosecutors going against them, I think that this thing's dead. They're dead in the water. I mean, there's just too much information. There's too much there's too much stuff that has question marks. There's too many things that are, when you look at, again, Nevada, we've talked ad nauseum about the Central Michigan staff had Connor Stallions on his sideline again, that Michigan State game was a night game and it was a Friday night early season game. So Connor Stallions, for whatever reason, was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to drive up to that game. I've got a couple of my buddies on that staff. They're going to get me a pass. They're going to get me, they're going to give me the coaching polo. They're going to get me a little hat. I'm not gonna have the shoes. They forgot the shoes, which is my favorite part. Is like, all of the other coaches are wearing, Adidas or New Balance or whatever they wear at Central Michigan, and he's got on his Jordans or whatever his Michigan team shoes are, and he's on that sideline. And again, it could have been an 8-second investigation for Central Michigan to come out and say, no, that is John Johnson or whoever he's our quality control coach or he's a trainer or whatever. It is not Connor Stallions, but they haven't done it. And it's been almost, 11 months, 10 months since that video occurred. And the fact that it's still floating out there, there's been no denial. Again, they know that they got caught red-handed doing something stupid. And it's something where, as much as, you want to say that the head coach is in charge of everything, I don't know if I can really paint that on the head coach, because I'm sure that he had no idea that this was happening. Because if the head coach has the head coach at Central Michigan is probably making $1 million, $1.2 million, whatever he makes a year, and if some moron was like, hey, we're gonna get Connor Stallions, who's my friend, to come on the sideline, and again, you can look again. He's looking down. He's got the different shoes on, and like. I've told you, I've been on the sideline before. When I played at Ohio State as a player and a coach, when some guy is sprinting and jumping over the bench onto the fan, like, nobody in the world is going to be looking down at the ground and pulling his hat down and looking at the floor. Like there isn't a human on this world that would be like that, ever. And then he keeps looking down. And again, the best part is he pulls the brim down again for a second time. But it's him. Nevada, your thoughts on that? We'll dig into some super chats.
Well, yeah, and we had video from the year before where I swear he was there the year before. Because I don't believe for a second, it's never the first time that a guy's doing it. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Like, it's never like, oh, that's the only time I was ever doing it. Like, there was other video that's not as conclusive as that one, but I'm convinced he'd been doing it multiple times.
This old crappy one?
Yeah, I'm convinced that was
this is kind of like the Blair Witch Project, but there he is, back at it again.
Yeah, I'm convinced that was him as well. So, but hey, it's like I said, the Michigan guys are starting to figure it out. They're starting to try to prepare the masses, because look, if the NCAA has one final hammer to swing, they're going to swing it at Michigan, because if they don't swing it at Michigan, they know they're done. They almost have to. Michigan's forced their hand. They by being so egregious, and they've got to bring the hammer of Thor down on them now.
Yeah, I totally agree, and it is funny because this is the last time I'm going to show, but this is Jesse Minter, who's a shell of what he should be, and he's got Connor, literally an intern. And again, this doesn't happen in real life. He has an intern in his ear. This doesn't happen, where he's talking right to the defensive coordinator, and he's saying, "Hey, it's run right, and then all of a sudden, they do a look back. And magically, they have the perfect call. Again, our whole team is looking at the sideline. They're getting the signals from down here, and it's something where you look at this and you see the fact that they're, here he is. He's saying it's run right, and he's got the signals from our look back mechanism, which is something we used to do. You can see DeJuan in Paris. This is a couple years ago, obviously. And these guys are, everyone's looking back at the signal, including Connor, and they're getting the signal. And he mouths right to Jesse Minter, who's now the defensive coordinator for the LA Chargers, "Hey, it's a run right." So what do they call safety Mike linebacker, everybody come down to the right. Like, I mean, don't honor two great receivers. Like, don't honor this and this and this. Just don't acknowledge that you've got 3 first-round picks split out wide. Bring the house. And they do. And we run right into it, and it's stuffed. And, again, people are like, well, they've got the calls, and what could that do? I was like, well, when you put, like, again, right here, he's saying run right. And again, when you're this guy and you make $20,000 a year, you're not generally right in the ear of the defensive coordinator on game day. Normally, you're on the sideline. You might have a little clipboard. You might be charting something. Like, when you're this guy, in reality, you are speaking when spoken to. You're not like talking in the ear of the DC during the biggest game of his entire coaching career. But unless you've got the magic solution, which he did. So it's like, and again, there's the other one where, it's the pass deal where he says it's a pass and all the guys point to the sky. So, like I said, the great thing about modern technology, the great thing about, the media and having 10 TV there and having Fox there is there's 800 different camera views, and there's cameras on, when you do these national games like an Ohio State Michigan game, there's always a camera on the defensive coordinator, the offensive coordinator, the head coach of both teams. So you've got literally dedicated cameras to both of those. So you capture stuff like that where it's kind of the end of days, because it's so egregious, it's so bad. But again, people that don't think anything's going to happen, I'm like, you guys better recognize, because again, SC hasn't been the same. Arizona State got nailed in the Stone Age for recruiting. Like, again, recruiting stuff is kind of whatever. Like, it's not great, but it doesn't affect the gameplay. Now, it can affect the players you have in the game, but it's not the same as actually affecting the game. And I think that's where the NCAA is going to draw a pretty fierce line, because you can't be, giving someone the signals and advanced scouting. And again, Connor Stalions was really good at this. I mean, this wasn't like some random, hey, I just happen to figure out what the signals are and let's see if we can get it done. Like, he worked at this and he staged it, and I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic when these guys get smoked, because there's some people, because it's gone on longer, that they don't think anything's going to happen. But again, I've lived through cases where things have gone on for a long time. There's been silence, like echoes of silence for months and months and months. But in general, it's because, a decision is going to get reached and it's going to smash Michigan football. And I can't wait for it. Nevada, any thoughts before we dig into some super chats?
No, I think you're exactly right. I think the Stallions thing where, I mean, he's literally, you can see him saying run right. You literally can see him saying that. And, when I heard people talk about, well, what type of an advantage would this be? And it's like, oh, it's like a 3% advantage. A 3% advantage. If you know what play's coming, it's so big. I mean, I called defenses. Like, if I knew if it was just a pass or a run, let alone what direction it's being, I'd be 90% bet. 90%.
Well,
but like
I said, here's a look back play. CJ Stroud, here's Connor. They do look back. So they look back. So Dewan's looking back. You've got Enoch looking back here. And as soon as they look back, you can see Connor Stalions. Like, Connor Stalions is right here. So 10 TV, credit to 10 TV, Dom Taveri and that crew. They look back, and Connor is literally looking at the signals. He knows the signals. And as soon as he picks the signal, he points to the sky. I mean, he literally points to the sky. And again, these kids are all on it, because he points to the sky, and they all point to the sky because they know it's a pass. So, dude, even if you've got a 50-50 shot, I mean, most of you guys obviously have never played poker before. If you know if someone's bluffing or not, I mean, would it adjust your bet? Of course it would. And I think that's the interesting thing. So, again, like, he says it. He points to the sky. He's got the, I mean, this is the most, this is why I love, us having 10 TV and all these other cameras that have all these different angles, because he's literally pointing past right off the signal, and they've got, an incredible amount of data as to why he knew that. Because again, to pick that in game, early in the game, would be so difficult to do, especially because, Ohio State, they're not stupid, despite what some people think. Like they're not dumb. They've learned how to mask their signals. They've changed their signals. I mean, James Laurinaitis even talked about last year when he was an actual signaler. He's not a signaler anymore now. He's a true linebackers coach. But when he was a grad assistant, he was a signaler. They had to change the signals every week because they knew that this was going on. So again, to still be able to pick it when teams are changing their signals and they're holding the boards up to cover up the signals and every other method of the madness, it's crazy. But again, this is what these guys did, and I think that they're going to get smashed when this all comes through. All right, Nevada, we got a super chat. This is a great question, Rohan Van Gogh. Appreciate you, my man. Thank you for the 5. When's our best time to rotate our defensive players out, plus best defensive bench players? Can we rotate offense out at the same as defense? Nevada, do you want to take a crack at this, or do you want me to? Because I think I know this a touch better, but do you want to take a crack first?
No, you go first, and I'll
all right.
When you
when I screw everything when I screw everything up, you can come in. Okay. You teach me some ball. I appreciate you. All right. So to me, obviously the key difference that everyone has to realize on defense versus offense is when you play offense, like I played offensive line, I never rotated out of the game. I never had a sub. I never needed, a quote, a blow, say, hey, do you need a blow because you're tired? Do you, as in blow, like I need to get oxygen in my body. No, I don't. So, you rotate guys. It's kind of a feel thing. But it's also a talent and a what did you put on the practice film type thing. Because, again, last year, we played Notre Dame. Notre Dame was an ultra physical team, ultra physical offensive line. We never rotated JT Tuimoloau and Jackson. And again, for as long as I live, that is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life in terms of two football teams going at each other. The fact that we had our two defensive ends play that entire game is asinine. It's crazy. And really, like, again, I like Caden Curry. I like Kenyatta Jackson, but it's an indictment on they need to be way better. You can't just leave, again, Myles Garrett doesn't play every play of a game. Nick Bosa, any defensive end who's, TJ Watt, any D-end edge guy that you can ever dream of, they don't play every play. They rotate in because on defense, the biggest difference between defense and offense is on defense, you have to run to the ball every play. If you're one of the 11 guys on the field for defense, you have to run to the ball. If it's a sweep to the left, if it's a long pass play, if it's whatever, you have to run to the ball. Now, you're supposed to. Now, I know that there's some guys that are lazy and they dog it and they're just like, oh, I'm not going to do it. But, if you've got a good, hard-nosed defensive coordinator, like he's going to make you run to the ball. So those guys have to rotate in because they have to run so many more yards / miles than a regular, an offensive lineman. Like, I used to run to the ball just, to make sure that if anybody, if San Antonio Holmes fumbled or if someone was, laying on him too long or messing with them, I could peel them off. Plus, I always like to just run to the ball to help my guys up. If San Antonio or Teddy had a 20-yard gain, I'd run down there, pick them up, whatever. This is something I got in the habit of doing when I was a young player. But when you get to the NFL, like the offensive linemen in the NFL, and really the offensive linemen at Ohio State now, they don't run to the ball at all. So they conserve all their energy. I think it's lazy and I think it's stupid, but that's just like Tom Herman, who I think is a very good offensive coach. Like he was anti-run to the ball because when I was a young GA working and Tom came in as a no huddle offensive coach, he's like, our guys don't run to the ball. They don't run to the ball. We don't run to the ball. And I was like, why? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. He's like, well, we don't do it because we want to go no huddle and go faster. It's like, okay, I get it. So you go to where the spot of the ball is and you sit there like a bunch of buffaloes and you stand there and we snap the ball a little bit quicker. But I was like, well, I like the guys covering the ball just in case the 1 in a billion chance there's a fumble or there's a guy blows his knee out and he's in agony and he drops the ball or even worse, some defensive player takes a cheap shot on our guy. Like I want our guys to be able to see it and stick up for him. Again, there's the real popular video of Cam Brown where he's at Michigan and the 4 big fat offensive linemen from Michigan like kind of tower over him and they kind of punk him, and like our guys are nowhere to be found, and that's like one of the revolutionary moments in the Ohio State Michigan thing where our little corner is getting punked by a bunch of Michigan linemen who, they weren't coming to the ball, but they kind of were running like a bunch of buffaloes, like a band of brothers, and our guys were nowhere to be found. And that was kind of something that kind of, I think, set the tone in the rivalry, and that's why they beat us the last 3 times, other than the cheating. But I think that I would rotate in some of the guys earlier, like Kenyatta and Caden have to get in earlier, get them involved, get their minds in the game. But you're kind of at the mercy of how good are the guys? Like how good are they in practice? Can they add something? Because the problem with a guy like Kenyatta is Kenyatta get in the game and the first play of the game, he give him a 40-yard run. They'd run right at him, and he wasn't real interested in playing the run. He wasn't real physical. So that kind of penalizes Jack Sawyer and JT because, if you go in and there's a huge disparity in talent between the top-notch guys and the bottom guys, like it forces the top guys to play even when they're dog tired, like they were at the end of that Notre Dame game. So that's my opinion. In terms of can we safely rotate offense out as the same as the defense, I think that, the receivers could probably rotate a little bit more because they run more. The O-line should never rotate. Again, something, and this is completely off topic, but something that's hilarious to me is that when you play these video games like Madden and NCAA 25, they rotate the O-lineman as consistently as all the other positions, and that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life because O-linemen don't rotate out, ever. Unless there's a performance issue where there's a couple of guys competing for a spot like left guard or right guard, that's the only time you see a rotation. But like when you play some of these games, like they rotate these guys like they're receivers or running backs, and it's simply not the case. Like the linemen play the whole game on the offensive side of the ball. Nevada, your thoughts? Rohan Von Gol, again, thanks for the 5. He says, what's our best time to rotate our defensive players out / our best defensive bench players? And can we safely rotate the offense out as the same as the defense? Your thoughts?
Yeah, look, it's just all about trust. It's all about trusting the backups. And clearly last year, Ohio State didn't, in certain positions, they didn't trust the backups. And I think that's, that's always one of those things where, we end up with a situation like you talked about with Jack and JT where they didn't come out the entire game, which neither one, we talked about that during the game. We're like, has anybody ever seen that before? And neither one of us could come up with a game that we could think of where that had happened before. And I think with the, with the offense, you can talk about particular, series, the third series, Kirk was part of the famous '06 Texas game where they brought in the second team offensive line. They said it's going to be the third series or whatever it was. And regardless of the situation, they brought him in and they went down the field and got a touchdown. You can do it with quarterbacks where you can say, hey, you're going to get 2 series and then we're going to switch it. You're going to get 2 and 2. But with defense, it's really more situational. It's really more, kind of dependent on game flow, but it just depends upon trust. And Ohio State, look, they've got so many capable backups. They've got, your Malik Hartfords and your Jermaine Matthews, and we've talked about the Caden Currys, the Kenyatta Jacksons, and the Hero Canoes and C.J. Stroud or C.J. Hicks and Sonny Style. I mean, you've got just so many guys that can play, but there's got to be trust. Ryan Day's got to make a commitment to those guys in terms of doing it. Last year, he was, basically, giving the direction to the coordinators not to sub, and he didn't trust them. The coordinators didn't trust them, and it didn't happen. I think this year it's going to be completely different. We've talked about the impact of the portal. We've talked about the impact of just having so much depth and so much talent on this Ohio State team. But I think that's one of the things that's going to be the most exciting about this year is we're going to see more guys play this year than I think any year ever. I mean, before you would see guys play, but it would be like, if the game was 63-0, it was out of thing. You're having the 4th string guys kind of get in there. I think this year you're going to see guys get in when it matters because we have so many guys that can play and they want to see them on the field. They want to get them real playing time, and I think that's going to be one of the real treats of 2024 is seeing so many different guys in action.
I totally agree. I think it's going to be the deepest team we've had. I think when you look at our You look at our tight ends, we've got a bunch of guys that need to play in there, but receiver, I mean, you've got to get the top 4 guys in. The top 4, there's a clear cut. Emeka's our number 1, JJ's our number 2, Carnell, Brandon, and then after that, you've got to get somebody. I don't know if it's Bryson Rogers, I don't know if it's Jaden Ballard, I don't know if it's another one of the freshmen, Mylan Graham. You got to get that 4th, 5th, 6th guy going. It's a long season. Tailback, I think as much as people were upset about, Awaka and tearing his ACL, like you've got James Peoples as your number 3. He's got to play this year. I mean, you got to get him carries. He needs 5 to 10 carries against Akron this year because you're going to have Trey and Quinshon. We'll beat Akron by 70 points. And you got to get, I wouldn't even redshirt Sam Williams-Dixon. I'd play 4 tailbacks because I think in this long season, you're going to need 4 tailbacks. And the luxury of being an Ohio State team is you've got 4 good tailbacks and you've got 2 that are like upper echelon ultra. Literally, and Phil Steele's rankings, 2 of the top 4 guys in the NFL draft are on Ohio State's backfield, which is insane. Quinshon and Trey Henderson. So I think you got to get number 3 and 4 ready to go because I don't want Trey and Quinshon playing that much versus Akron or versus the directional schools or versus Marshall. Because we need him versus Oregon. We need him versus Penn State. We need him versus Michigan. It's a long season. So, again, that's just my opinion. In terms of what we're doing with, the rest of the positions, the O-line's actually, I think, surprisingly deep. Like, we've got some guys that can play. We've got a lot of guys that are veteran. I think that when you're playing these early season games, when you're playing Akron, we got to see what we can get out of George Fitzpatrick. What can we get out of Luke Montgomery, Zed Mikulski? Again, if the chalk is, as of today, that the starting offensive line will be Josh Simmons at left tackle, Donnie Jackson left guard, Seth McLaughlin at center. I believe it's going to be Carson Hinsman at right guard, and then you've got Josh Fryer at right tackle. Like, get Teager out there. Get Teager out there at right guard. Get George out there at right tackle. Get, kind of the AYOs out there. Get Josh Padilla out there at center. He's out of redshirt anymore. It's time for him to go play and see what we got. Because you're going to need depth. Zed Mikulski can play left tackle, right tackle. I'd get those guys going. The thing that I love about the schedule, and we're going to toss this up real quick, is that we've got a ton of cakewalk games to start the season. So you look at the one second. You look at how we start off. Obviously, I've already mentioned that we start off with we got Akron, we got Western Michigan. So those are our first 2 games of the year. And then you get deeper into the season. You got Marshall. We're really not tested for the first quarter of the season. So toss this up here on the screen. Apologize as I searched for it real quick. You got the Zips, you've got Western Michigan, then you're off. So again, with that off week being that early, I would treat these games like spring games, like scrimmages. I would play everybody. You're going to beat Akron no matter, if me and Nevadabuck played, the X and Z receiver, we'd beat Akron. You're going to crush, so you have probably 2 of the worst teams in the MAC to start off your schedule, followed by a bye week. And you play Marshall. Marshall's terrible. And then you go at Michigan State, and then you have Iowa. So you start off with basically two spring game scrimmages and then an off week. And we can really figure out your depth. Again, this is, you want Luke Montgomery getting 35 snaps. You want George Fitzpatrick getting 35 snaps. You want James Peoples getting 35 snaps. Like, you're not going to burn up Trey Henderson and Quinshon versus those 2 teams. But those guys, those young guys need to figure out where they're at on the rotation. Obviously, we have training camp to go. There's a lot of evaluation stuff. But this schedule is outstanding for building a championship team because you're not opening with Notre Dame. You're not opening with, like when, 05, we opened 05, 06, we played Texas and then at Texas, 2 straight years where we had to go and play like a real team. We had to play like the number 1 team in the country. In 06, they were 1, we were 2. In 05, I don't know where I think SC might have been 1 and we were 2 and they were 3, whatever it was. But we weren't playing Western Michigan and Akron and Marshall. So basically, and then that 3rd week, when you have that bye week, man, you can scrimmage these kids to death. And I'm not talking about the old guys. I'm talking about them young guys. Them young guys, I'm putting the screws on them hard. And I talked to Jim Tressel about this because, Jim Tressel is one of the greatest team managers in the history of football. And I said, Coach, how do you deal with the season when it's a schedule like this versus a schedule where you've got like a juggernaut week 2 or you open with a juggernaut or it's a monster. Trust played USC like week 2, I think in 09 and 08. They went out to SC and got smoked. It's a whole different mindset when you're playing teams like this. Like he basically would say, well, I'm just going to keep it. Training camp's going to go for another 3 weeks, basically. So, and what that means is like in training camp, like when you practice in training camp, it is the gladiator pits. I mean, it is, we're putting the screws somewhere in the full pads, inside run versus the first team defense, beating the tar out of each other. Whereas like when we're going to play Texas, like you can't just beat the Christ out of these guys when they've got to go play like a real team. But, in this instance, this is the time where Ryan can put his foot down, and grind these guys a little bit. Again, Urban in 12 did that. Like when we were playing, we opened with Miami of Ohio and we played, a bunch of turds to start off before we played Cal Berkeley. And Cal Berkeley wasn't great, but they had Keenan Allen and they had some like decent, some big time NFL guys, but they weren't a great collective group. So this will be fascinating to see how Ryan manages this. Because again, I'd put the hammer down all the way through about September, God, not 20th, I'd say September 17th or so. Hammer's coming down the whole time. Get a little test versus Marshall. Michigan State, they stink. They got a whole new regime up there, so we'll see how they look. But I imagine they're in a full rebuild. They've got a new quarterback, new coach. Iowa obviously can't score at all because you got to build all this to Oregon. I mean, Oregon is going to be a massive test out at Autzen. They beat us. They pummeled us last time we played them. But I think that's the game you build towards. I mean, really, the thing that's luxurious about this is you can only start game planning for Oregon. I'm sure they already have a full game plan in for Oregon already, and they'll adjust it as the season goes. But with the way this sets up, I mean, you don't need some comprehensive, deep-rooted game plan to beat Michigan State or Iowa. Oregon, you gotta pull out all the stops though. So this will be good. Nevada, any thoughts on that as we carry forward?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, the schedule this year, for Ohio State is a really interesting one. I think, it's the perfect mix of, tough competition because anytime you've got games at Oregon and at Penn State, it's not an easy schedule. But then you've got, the strategic, breaks when you need them. You've got Michigan at home. So I like the schedule. I think it's a perfectly challenging one for them. And then when you throw in the end of the season run with the Big Ten championship game being a 1-2, and then 3 or 4 playoff games, man, it's going to be a heck of a grind. But Ohio State will be battle tested for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the way this sets up, and then you've got you got Nebraska, which again that'll be spicy because I'm sure Dylan Rill will be their starting quarterback, and he's coming to the shoe, and they could be undefeated in that game. So that kind of gives you like kind of a faux outrage, where people are going to be all upset at Dylan, even though, again, as much as people want to be mad at Dylan Rill, we got Julian St. Hilary's better than Dylan. And, Dylan was a legacy at Nebraska. His father obviously played at Nebraska. His uncle works at Nebraska. I think but that'll be good though, because we'll have that off week and then people will be all juiced up for that one. And then obviously we're going to be at Penn State, which will probably be a big nooner because it's November. I don't know if they're going to put that into a night game. I would love if it was a night game because I think it'd be absolutely awesome. But again, that's just my opinion. And then obviously Purdue stinks, Northwestern stinks, Indiana stinks. And then you get the Big Blue, which I think will be absolutely fantastic. And that'll be a big game. Nevada, I believe that you're excited about that game.
Yeah, I'm ready, man. I wish that game was tomorrow. Can't wait for it. We'll be big favorites in the game, and I'll be betting Ohio State and laying the points because I think it's going to be a massacre.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting because they're talking a lot of trash, man. But I'm like, you guys got to, everything you guys are saying, you got to write a check for that when it comes November. So I'll be excited about it. I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic. It's going to be That'll be a great get back for Ryan Day. I'm very excited about him. I think that Chip Kelly's offense will be full steam ahead at that point, and it's going to be scary to see what these guys can get done. What are we at? Nevada, we're at about 50. Any other thoughts, Nevada? Again, we kind of went to the well with the Michigan stuff. The Michigan stuff is going to be exciting for us. I think that the Michigan beat is scared to death as to what's going on right now. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I like I said, I've been following this thing as close as anybody. Been going to thing, and I've actually, my feeling about the penalties, I think it's going to be worse than I thought. I've been kind of moderating expectations with my own expectations about the penalties, but I think it's going to be worse. I think it's going to be worse, and I think the Big Ten realizes that. I think the Big Ten's kind of preparing for that based upon the last update from the NCAA, and I think Michigan's preparing for that as well. When you hear the public comments from Ward Manuel and the stuff that's going around, I think they all know that it's coming, and the hurricane's coming, and it's going to be bad.
Nevada, I know you're not a video gamer. Your kids are video gamers. Are you excited about the new NCAA 25 football that actually has G. Scott and the crew in the game? Are you excited about that?
I just want to say, do you have, is there, is Burt Carton in there, in some sort of, fantasy legacy game or something like that? Do they have that stuff, you can all-time players or something?
Well, they've got the all-time, NFL current match, Nick Bosa is in the game, Joey Bosa is in the game. This is the first play that they put some game film up, which is your boy Trey getting the ball, running a read option from Will Howard. The interesting thing about this is the starting line on this is they've got Zen Mikulski, Tigra, McLaughlin, and they've got. So I don't know who these guys have working for them. That the line is completely wrong. But it is interesting. They've got Ennis out there starting. There's Travion. Travion looks like he's been in the tanning bed for a little bit compared to real life. But they got JJ. I mean, they got JJ starting in the slot, which I don't think is going to be accurate because he's going to be out there at the X. But the game film's out, and there's a little bit of I think there's some excitement because I think that this is something that'll help people ease into the college football season because this will be a big year for the Bucks, and Ohio State's going to be awesome on the game. But I wasn't sure if you're a gamer. I know obviously we did Scoop Dreams a few years ago when we had no college football, but I think it's going to be interesting to see how many people are excited about this because I think a lot of people are excited about this being kind of the first taste to kind of virtually see Ohio State's roster, in action. Because I mean, again, you got Quinton Judkins is out here. They're playing obviously a whiteout in this film. You see JJ, you see Ennis, you see Tate, you see Emeka. I think this will be interesting. JT Tuimoloau is not in the game. Nevada, if you were a star defensive end, would you have opted out of the game and demanded more money?
Yeah, no, I think that's probably silly. I'm not sure why guys would do that at this point in time. I think you want to be in the game. I think you want to have kind of that publicity and. But hey, look. Now somebody had suggested a death match, Burt Carton versus Nevadabuck, and I just know you are a video gamer. You practice 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and so I think
10 hours a day.
I said that I'm going to do it. We're going to do a la Game of Thrones, trial by combat, and I'm going to get somebody to be my champion and do it. So I'm going to be taking auditions from people on the site. You can direct message me and give me your credentials as a gamer, and we're going to set up a game between Burt Carton and Nevadabuck's champion for the ultimate Buckeye Scoop championship in the new video game.
And we both have to play as our alma maters, correct?
Well, I get to pick the opponent. So you play as Akron, and then we play as Ohio State.
No, you got to play as Cal State Riverside. I get to play as Ohio That'll be a trial by fire, baby. But I love this because, if you watch, they released this game Ohio State, Penn State whiteout, where you see, of course, we've got the slowest secondary in the world on this stupid game because the guy that makes this game is a huge Michigan fan. And then they release Ohio State, Michigan in the snow. And of course, Michigan wins because the guy that's the lead developer is he went to Michigan, he's a big Michigan guy. So, of course, like Ohio State's never going to be able to beat Michigan on this game unless you juice the rankings, which, I'm going to be doing that. But
no, but you wonder, are they going to have are they going to have the little Connor Stallions Geppetto on the side?
Oh, they have to. They have to.
I mean,
and you got to have the Venmo transactions in there, and you got to have the tickets, and you got to have like the guy in the stands at the Ohio State, Toledo game where he's holding his iPhone up. See, that would be absolutely amazing. I would love that.
Yeah, but that'll probably be one of the little Easter eggs they have in the show. Look at the stands, the guy with the little cell phone holding it up the whole 3 hours and recording the signals and stuff like that. I'll bet you that's in there somewhere.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Nevada, let's wrap this thing up. Any final thoughts?
No, just if you are a fight fan, there's a UFC card going on tonight. Dagestan Poppy. I know he's got a pick for it. If you're you know who DM'd Dagestan Poppy for the pick?
Brock Lesnar.
No, Andrew Smith, the recruiting expert from Rivals.
Oh, what a douchebag! Oh my God. Andrew Smith, who's the dumbest human being on earth. Again, if you guys are on Twitter, there's a guy named Andrew Smith who's like he says on Rivals on 11 Warriors. He literally was asking people on this show. I'm talking about Doreen. I'm talking about Devin. He said, "Hey, Kirk Barton asked me to have you send money." And I get the screenshot. So I'm going to throw these up here because, again, this really angered me. So if this guy is that blatant and that stupid, I'm going to throw these up here. So he sent this to Devin, who's a mod of ours. Actually, no, he sent him to Akeem. And he said, this stupidity. So, again, I don't like putting people on blast unless they're morons. And Andrew Smith is a moron. And don't give him any time of day. But he said, can you download Cash App? And he said this to Akeem, Treasure the Torah. So he said, I talked to Kirk and me, Torah. We talked all this out. You've been so good to us. So he's literally asking Akeem, who's like the nicest human being in the world, to download Cash App and send him money. So just so that we're very clear with this, I've never asked anybody to ever send anybody money ever. But he tried to do this to Akeem, who's a generous guy, and tried to do to Devin, Doreen. So this guy is a douchebag. And again, I always thought he was this harmless and stupid because he puts on these dumb crystal balls where he's like, oh, I crystal balled Corian Moore, and I did it with Berm, and I put on I crystal balled David Sanders, and I crystal balled Josh Petty. But this guy is a scam artist and he's a douchebag. So if you guys see him on Twitter, again, I just put him on blast. Again, these are screenshots from Akeem, who's Treasure the Torah on here. He's a moderator on here. He sent them to me and he said, did Kirk ever, Kirk asked me to do this. I was like, I don't even know who that guy is. I always thought he was just harmless and stupid and a loser and he lives in his mom's basement. But in reality, he's a scam artist. So again, Andrew Smith, you're a douchebag. Don't ever say my name again. I'm not going to say any of the bad words I want to say because I'm trying to keep this thing kosher. But yeah, I'm sure that he asked for the pick because he's trying to make money and scam people. But Dagestan Poppy is not a scam. He's a great person and he's the best handicapper in the world for UFC fights. But I had to say that real quick because I had to put out a feeler to Doreen and to Devin and because Akeem, and thank you, Akeem, for saying that to me that this guy did this.
But that's what he's doing is literally against the law. I mean,
well, yeah,
you're trying to. I mean, that's illegal what he's doing. Like that's not harmless fun right there. That's like, dude.
No, well, and again, like I wouldn't give this guy the time of day unless he was trying to scam members of Buckeye Scoop and say, oh, literally download this app, my man. And then Akeem, who called me, said, hey, Kirk, did you ask me to send I was like, why would I ever do that, Akeem? In a million years. I would never ask anybody to do anything like this. But this guy's a scam artist. He's a scumbag. He's a douchebag. And, again, Akeem, who's, again, if you guys are big time super chatters and you guys are very generous, like, this is what he said. Oh, we spoke. He said, okay, we both spoke about your generous behaviors. I've never talked to this guy in my entire life on a DM, on a text message, on a phone call, ever. I don't even know who this guy is. I don't even know he exists. And he said, we want to double the money that you donate. So again, he's a scam artist. He's a douchebag. I hope you get hit by a meteorite and you don't exist anymore, because don't try to scam my members. Because again, that really ticked me off, because again, Akeem is one of the nicest human beings in the world. So is Devin, so is Doreen, everybody else. And I would never in a billion years ask you guys to ever do anything for anybody ever. You know, we appreciate what you guys do for our Pay It Forward stuff, and we take care of a ton of veterans because of that. So we thank you for that. But I would never say, send this person money. So I just want to make that real clear. And again, you saw the messages. I didn't, again, Akeem Gettings is one of the greatest human beings in the world, Torah. I wouldn't do this in a million years, and he knows that, and he called me on it, and I said, Akeem, why would I ever do that? Like, I would never, ever ask you to do that for somebody. So the guy's a scam artist. We got another super chat as I was, just clearing the air. Because again, I don't, the folks on here are great people. You guys have great hearts. We appreciate you guys so much. But I don't like scam artists. I really don't. So I just had to blow my stack real quick on that, because again, we look out for the folks and we appreciate you guys. Dan, wants to thank you for the 5. Does Central Michigan get hammered by the NCAA? Also, collusion could be punished. Nevada OH. Well, I don't know if they'd get hammered, but I mean, at some point, someone has to say, okay, guys, like, fess up. How did this happen? How did Connor Stalions get on your sideline? Who gave him the pass? Because somebody gave him a sideline pass. Somebody, if you put a gun to my head and said, Kirk, you've been a graduate assistant, how could this have possibly gone down? I'd say, well, what I think went down is Connor Stalions probably bought a ticket to the game, or he met the team, when they got off the bus. And, once you get your little credential or your little field pass, like once the game really starts going, they don't stop and check for your credential every time or your field pass every time, because once the game's going, it's already on. Like when Ohio State runs off the field at halftime, you don't have to, like, when you run back on the field after the 15 or 20 minute halftime break when the bands perform, like they're not out there looking for every single coach's credential. A lot of times you put your credential on your belt loop, like when you're out on the field, but like I would just put it in my pocket, because I was like, well, I don't want this thing flapping around and hit me in the leg for 3 hours. So I'd put it in my pocket. If they needed it, they needed it. But nobody ever asked me for a credential. So when you're at like a Michigan State game, which is way less arduous and way less intense compared to an Ohio State game, he probably ran out with the team, probably ran out with all the coaches. Nobody noticed, because, like when the team runs out of the tunnel and you've got, 25 or 30 or 50 coaches now that they have unlimited coaches, like they don't stop and say, hold up. Every single coach has to pull out their credential, and we have to check each one and make sure it has a little hologram on it or whatever to make sure that it's legit for this game. They don't do that. They just let everybody run on the field and do their thing. And again, at that point, it's kind of self-policing, where people will be like, well, I don't know who this guy is on our sideline who's got our polo on and the Ray-Ban videotape sunglasses on. So it's self-policing at that point. If someone's on your sideline who you don't know, that's on the coach, the head coach, the coordinators, whoever. But it clearly happened, because again, if it didn't happen, Central Michigan would come out and say, this was not Connor Stalions. This was Burke Carton or Nevadabuck or whoever. And they can say, here's what he looks like. Here's his 8x10. Here's his actual credential. But they haven't done that, which is obviously that they're guilty as charged, and they know that, and they're trying to, kind of duck it. But because again, if I'm Michigan State, I'm like, why is this guy on your sideline, a guy that is known to steal signals, a guy that works for Michigan? You guys know that's illegal. And again, Michigan State's got a huge beef there for sure. Lord knows who else let him on the sideline, but this is one that actually got captured on tape. But Nevada, what are your thoughts? Does Central Michigan get hammered by the NCAA? And also, should the collusion be punished? What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, look, I don't think it's that. I think you're making it way more complicated than it was. I think it's really easy. Connor Stallions knows the guy in the Central Michigan staff. He called him up and like, hey, get me a pass and get me a shirt so I look like a Central Michigan staffer. He went there. The guy gave him the pass, gave him the shirt. He went on the field and did the. I mean, he was yucking it up with people on the sideline. It's not like he was standing by himself. He was talking to people. So clearly, they knew who it was. But I don't think Central Michigan gets hammered because, for them, that's really one where they can really point to, that low-level staffer that did it, his buddy, as part of that little cadre of people that were going to, followers of the Michigan Manifesto. I think they can kind of get away. They'll become a witness, not a suspect in this thing. They'll speak to kind of what Connor Stallions did and how he did it and why he was in it. And I really don't believe it was the first time. And I think that'll come out as well. But I think there'll be a cooperating witness. So we'll see how that happens.
Totally agree. All right, Nevada, let's wrap this thing. Any final thoughts?
No, just like I said, UFC card going on. Go to Dagestan Poppy on Twitter. There's a pick for tonight's
Can you spell that?
DAG. It's like phonetic. Dagestan. DAGESTAN, and then Poppy. PAPI on Twitter. Okay. And he's got a pick for tonight. If you send him a direct message and tell him you're part of the Buckeye Scoop and you're not a scumbag like Andrew Smith, he'll probably give you the pick for free. And enjoy the card, and we'll see you tomorrow night.
And go Bucks. Thank you guys as always for kicking it with us. We appreciate you guys so much. You guys, hope you guys had a great night tonight. I had a great night. If you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also click that little alert bell. Again, we appreciate you guys kicking it with us each and every night. We'll be back Sunday at 7. I hope you guys have a great night. Shout out where you guys are watching from. Shout out who you guys are watching with. If you guys want to do something exquisite and really help us, could you give us a follow on Apple Podcasts? That would be huge for us, along with Spotify. It takes 8 seconds to do. It'll also leave us a 5-star review. Those are huge for propelling us up the channel. No, we have the number 1 podcast in the country, folks, for Ohio State football. It's not even close at this point. And it's all because of you guys. So we thank you guys for kicking on this each and every night. Again, we bring brand new, exquisite content almost every night, probably about 350 nights a year, and the season's ramping up, so it's going to be big time. I'm really excited about it. So I appreciate you guys. I hope you guys have a great Saturday night. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Go Bucks.